Well, the Donald Trump cognitive decline story is absolutely exploding. I want to bring in Josiah from Pondering Politics to help me break this down. He has some clips for us to watch and things to discuss. Before getting into what Josiah has brought for all of us, I want to remind you, what are we talking about when we say that? Trump cognitive decline? What's going on? What prompted this conversation to become so discussed across the media, especially lately? And that is that in recent days and weeks, Trump is just a mess. For a long time, he's been, to be clear. But lately, the back-to-back gaffes and glitches that are unlike anything we've ever seen have been unfortunate, to say the least, at least for Trump. So here's a little compilation to remind you of that fact. It's just skimming, very surface, because we want to get into the conversation. But here's a few things from the last few weeks.
By the way, they never report the crowd on January 6th. You know, Nikki Haley, lots of things. Like Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people, soldiers. Ridden nation, we have become a nation like nobody thought. Use your kitchen. And I'm going to use your bedroom, and there's not a damn thing. And that's the nice ones, okay? That's the nice ones. The most disgraceful part of Joe Biden's service is the divisive and all compliments of an incompetent. He must be cognitively impaired. I'm not cognitively. And, you know, raided my house in Florida, Mar-a-Lago. They raided. With they had no reason to. The attacks on me will be violent. They say that it's violent. The attacks, Biden said it, against Joe Biden's top and only political appointment, a guy named me. You can't mix names, purposely mix names, purposely. Ukraine and Russia wouldn't be fighting. I knew Putin, I know him very well. He was no. Again, yes, oh yes, and quickly. Says President Trump, yes, oh yes, we can. Putin, has so little respect for Obama that he's starting to throw around the nuclear word today. You heard that, nuclear. Did you just see Maduro, Venezuela? It's unbelievable. Oil exploration and production in the United States. The Biden border will, well, you know this, right? Even Argentina, they went MAGA. You know Argentina, great guy. We will expel the warmongers. We are a nation that just recently heard that Saudi Arabia and Russia will repeat.
Josiah, nothing gets me more than that. I give up. But with that being said, what do you have for us in terms of clips?
Yeah, so this is fascinating. I've been keeping a particular eye on this discourse because it's one, obviously, that concerns many Americans. As we know, whether we like it or not, there is a perception issue with respect to President Biden in terms of his mental fitness. But what hardly anybody talks about is there's also a perception issue, according to poll after poll after poll, with respect to Donald Trump's mental fitness, right? And so it's so hypocritical and so frustrating that the media don't pay more attention to it. And the clips I want to show you, both of which involve CNN. The first one being a former Trump advisor, who is just this person who worked for Donald Trump, who had a direct relationship with him in a professional sense. She's flabbergasted that more people are not talking about Trump's mental fitness. This is Alyssa Griffin, and let's play the clip and we'll unpack it together.
His public speeches continues to interchange or mix up President Biden and Barack Obama. Listen to this.
And Putin, has so little respect for Obama that he's starting to throw around the nuclear word today. You heard.
So he does that all the time, mixes them up in speeches. Alyssa, you worked inside the White House. You saw Donald Trump firsthand when he was, albeit 4 years or several years younger, at least. How much does he miss or mix up facts and the like?
I have said this before, he is not as sharp as he was in 2016 and not even as sharp as he was in 2020. For some reason, that doesn't necessarily come across to voters the same way, but Donald Trump is not the strongest fighter that Republicans could have right now. And it's remarkable how much voters don't see the age as also an issue because he is only 3.5 years younger than President Joe Biden. But there is something about the way they carry themselves that is seen very differently.
When you say he's not the same as he was.
He's never been a super articulate or eloquent eloquent person, but he's consistently mixing up names of heads of state. He's mixing up names like Nancy Pelosi and Nikki Haley. I mean, it's gotten worse. It hasn't gotten better. He's not nearly as sharp as he was.
So I do want to just add into this conversation before going any further, two things. First, a warning that this general age conversation, especially as it pertains to Biden, can get me really fired up because I am so dang aggravated by the phenomenon of the media spending so much time on something it's a factor, but is the most important? No, it's not. And so if we are doing our jobs in the media, then you put emphasis on things ideally sort of based on their importance and how they impact people's lives. And Biden's nuts, incredible list of achievements, his record, his policy record matters so much more and never gets discussed, especially in comparison to his age. But trying not to get too much into that for now. The second thing I want to note, and I'll throw it back to you, Josiah, is that Dr. John Gardner, he's been out publicly, did a really good interview on the David Pakman show, calling attention to the fact that he and apparently other medical professionals, I guess psychologists, are saying that Trump's showing, well, actually, let me reverse it. Biden is showing signs of normal aging that doesn't affect one's ability to govern effectively. Sure, it can affect their ability to give a great speech, but not governing in a wise and rational fashion. Trump is showing signs of something more dangerous, brain deterioration that is more like dementia and could impact his critical thinking skills. Josiah, what are your thoughts?
No, I saw that segment too. I completely agree. I mean, the doctor made a very persuasive case. Besides which, I mean, like, we're not auditioning Biden to be an auctioneer, right? If we wanted an auctioneer, Joe Biden would not be my first choice. What we're talking about is a statesman who is supposed to be head of state, head of government, commander-in-chief of the U.S. Armed Forces. And again, my complaint is whatever issues you may take with the perception associated with Biden's age, listen, if you have those concerns, you should at least be egalitarian in them. You should at least hold everybody to the same standard, particularly with, as Alyssa Griffin points out, a former Trump staffer. You know, Trump and Biden could have gone to high school together. And we know Biden is physically fit. He exercises all the time. He bikes all the time. We see and hear evidence of his critical thinking prowess, his ability to speak substantively, not just merely at length. Donald Trump can filibuster at length. Magnets, you take them underwater, they lose their magnetic stuff. Windmills with whales. Biden can actually talk substantively about foreign policy and domestic policy. That's the difference. So to me, it's just the double standard is so frustrating. And again, to see former Trump staffers say that also means quite a bit too, because she knew the man. She had a direct professional relationship with the guy. And again, I just don't think the media covers it nearly as frequently. And then there are other clips as well that we need to talk about, such as, again, another CNN clip in which a panel led by Jim Acosta, as well as somebody you will recognize, like critical viewers who recognize, like Tucker Carlson's viral moments will recognize this particular person. I'm curious, Luke, if you'll recognize him. They also draw attention to this, that why isn't the media covering this with a single standard? So let's play the clip and we'll unpack it together.
Paul, it's a continuation of what you hear on the right, that Biden is out of it. He's slipping and all of this stuff, and that the fascists and the communists at the White House are in charge.
Right. Well, we all remember when Joe Biden confused Barack Obama with Donald Trump. Oh, wait, no, that was Trump. We all remember when Joe Biden was under oath and he mistook a woman he raped for his wife. Oh, no, that was Donald Trump. In other words, I think the coverage of this has frankly not been very accurate, right? Biden's gaffes have always been built in. He's always had his verbal slips, as we all do. I've known him 35 years. I haven't seen it really get worse.
Yeah.
Trump is getting worse.
Paul, to your point.
Right. If Biden did any of that, it'd be front page New York Times, 4-inch wood. Okay? But Trump does it, and he gets a pass. And I just think we ought to be fair.
Joe?
Right, but you're right. It's not fair, but it is the reality. The polling shows that most Americans, most Democrats, think Joe Biden's too old. Joe Biden is the old that most Americans concede. Trump is he's so nuts, he's so bad, he's such a psychopath, he's so anti-American, we overlook the fact that he's old. but Biden just looks old. But it's an opportunity, I think, Jim, for the president. He and he alone can show he's up to the job.
So Josiah, funny you pointed out Paul Begala. He was on Crossfire. I did a flashback not too long ago about that Jon Stewart going on, shredding Tucker Carlson and Paul Begala, in a sense, too, just the whole format of that show. And I think that's where Tucker stopped wearing the bow tie because he got mocked for it. But yeah, great points there. Imagine if Joe Biden had some of the glitches we've seen from Trump in recent weeks. But see, the important distinction is not just that the other side would freak out. Because I would say we on the other side have sort of been calling attention to freaking out over Trump's things. It's that when Trump does it, some people on the other side cover it, and it sort of moves along. When Biden does it, especially if you had some of the wacky ones we've seen from Trump recently, everyone covers it. The right-wing media goes nuts, and then all of a sudden there's 13 different panels on CNN about Biden age, Biden age, Biden age, Biden age, Biden age, and everyone goes nuts. And then they go, oh, it's so strange that so many Americans believe this. So let's talk more about it, because polling shows a lot of Americans are concerned with this. Really? That's what happens when you talk about something a lot and you have a lot of influence. And maybe a similar shift in public opinion would happen if you would put a little bit of emphasis on the fact that he's been one of the most successful presidents in modern American history.
Yeah, so the funny thing is about Begalia's example, which I really appreciate, is the fact that he didn't say Fox News would print a story, because obviously they would, right? He said the New York Times, and he's absolutely true. You know, as much as the right wing in this country wants to paint the New York Times as a liberal rag, the fact of the matter is they're as inclined as anybody to throw Biden and Democrats under the bus because it generates clicks. I've said this before. I have no doubt that New York Times reporters and CNN reporters probably personally vote Democrat more than Republican. But what matters in terms of the so-called liberal bias isn't how they vote personally. It's how they actually do their job. And I would argue that the New York Times, CNN, AP, Reuters, all of them grade Republicans on a curve and cover Democrats much more seriously with much more scrutiny and expect more out of them. And I think it manifests itself in terms of their reporting. So I like the fact that, that Paul raised that concern, but also the fact that Joe Walsh, former Republican congressman, admitted, he says there is a double standard. He recognizes it as a conservative Republican, that there is a double standard in terms of how Biden's age and Trump's age is covered. But again, the thing I want to emphasize the most, Luke, and this is like the last source I have for you for this particular video, is just the fact that polling shows that most Americans are also concerned about Trump's age. And there was a recent poll which came out and once again confirmed it. 57%, nearly 60% of Americans think that Donald Trump is not mentally fit to be president. And I've also said this before in my videos, ever since the Biden campaign has started hammering this fact, we've seen a 7-point reduction in general polling in terms of people's confidence in Trump's cognitive fitness. So there's a case to be made here. And all we have to say is, listen, if you guys want to set the standard that we should be concerned about mental fitness and age, and I think those are perfectly fair things to be concerned about, then again, we have to be fair, especially when the other candidate, as you say, lacks Biden's record, lacks his legislative and executive record. He's an infinitely worse chief executive and legislator and negotiator. And he's also as much of a gaffe machine. He can't speak substantively. I think that more attention needs to be drawn to this.
Yeah. And as you earlier indicated, when he is having glitches, it's in the middle of, for example, the Nikki Haley was in charge of security, getting the name flipped around repeatedly. That was in the middle of him trying to blame Nancy Pelosi for January 6th. So it's not just a glitch or a gaffe. It's always within a bunker's detached from reality conversation. And so a mentally deteriorating Trump is an already dangerous person becoming mentally deteriorated, which is frightening. And I do think on Biden, part of what's played into this is he really does have sort of a govern quietly, let facts speak for themselves sort of mentality. And it seems like he's trying to get out of that, but as we've said so many times, facts don't speak for themselves. But because of that, the media is able to even more control people's perception of Biden. And I don't say that conspiratorially. I'm just saying like the media impacts people's perception of Biden a lot more because Biden's not in everyone's faces and he just was doing his things. The State of the Union, I think, served as an example of when Biden makes sure a speech is strong, goes out there, delivers it, and talks about what he's doing for people. Boom. Polling shows people like that a lot and are impacted a lot. And so I think in this campaign, it seems like this is what the Biden campaign is revving up to do. They just have to do more in terms of messaging and branding and getting their message to people, because otherwise, yeah, the little gaffes that go viral sort of define Biden, whereas Trump does a lot more work to get himself in everybody's faces, so there's just more to work with there.
No, 100%. But again, we've got to do our part, yes, in certainly emphasizing the president's just objective legislative and executive record, but also meeting the people and the campaigns where they are. And this is where I think the Biden campaign is really starting to make progress. Yes, they were probably too slow to the game, but we're seeing the rapid response team on social media from the Biden campaign really hammer Donald Trump on all his gaffes, glitches, malapropisms, things like that. So I think they recognize, whether they like it or not, whether we like it or not, this will be as much spectacle as substance. And Biden enjoys a colossal advantage with respect to substance. The polling shows that, even though unfortunately so many Americans are not aware of his legislative record, we've seen that among what are so-called double haters, which are voters that don't like Biden and don't like Trump, when you inform them of Biden's executive and legislative accomplishments, like the $35 insulin cap, just the sentiment shifts. They're like, okay, we're riding with Biden. I mean, it's colossal. So the Biden campaign has to continue to press on substance, but they also have to meet the spectacle politics where they are. And if so much of the narrative is going to be about age and mental fitness, they've got plenty of ammunition to hit Trump with.
Absolutely. Josiah, where can people find you?
YouTube.com/@ponderingpolitics, one word. I appreciate the collaboration, Luke.
Always an absolute delight. And if you all would make sure that you're subscribed to this channel and you like this video, that would be absolutely appreciated.